without any further ado, let's get on to talking to Holly here. Now, Holly, first of all, what part of the country are you from? Where are you located?
I'm from the East Coast. I live in Wallingford, Connecticut at the moment. I had my business in Colchester, Connecticut. So,
Okay. And that's not like an out in the country part of the country, is it?
no,
It's
Connecticut
not
is
out in
one.
the boondocks.
It's Connecticut is one of the most populated states. We're kind of wedged between New York and Massachusetts, between New York City and Boston, and it's very well populated, and you can get from one end to the other in about 2 hours.
That sounds like a lot of activity packed into a small space.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Well, Holly, how long have you been uh quilting, and how long have you been long arming, or are they one and the same, or
No, they're not. I have been quilting for 43 years. First quilt I made was a baby quilt. So my one child is 43 years old. Um,
wow.
and I've been long arming since 2003.
Okay. That that's a pretty good way to keep track of how long you've been quilting, the baby quilt for your child there. That's pretty good. So with long arming, did you 2003, did you start out with a Gammill at that time, or
I
oh,
did.
okay.
I bought my first Gammill with bonus money. I had a pretty successful insurance career. A lot of people who work in Connecticut work in insurance, and I was doing pretty well, and it was a good bonus year, and I decided to treat myself. So I bought a freehand Gammill at that point in time.
Okay. When you said bonus money, I'm saying, wait a minute, how do you get this bonus money? So that was, yeah, so you had a good year at work that year.
It was a good
Okay.
year at work.
Okay, gotcha. And so you started out with a Gammill. That uh why did you choose to go with a Gammill at that point? Do you remember?
I do. From my perspective at that point, and probably still now, Gamble has a reputation of being the strongest, the sturdiest, the best. So I did go to a show initially where, you could see all the various long arms. And I was pleased with what I saw, and I was pleased with how I had seen advertisement about it. Don't know that I had ever known anyone who owned one before I actually went to that show.
Gotcha. And and a lot of the people that I talk to that go to Quilting with Confidence, or they've seen one of the machines at a show, the word one of the words I hear oftentimes is just industrial, strong.
Mm-hmm.
And it is industrial, but yet at the same time you can move it with your fingertips. So anyway, so when you well, what made you why did you just decide to start long arming in the first place? How did you get it? What led you into that?
Well, having been quilting for a long time and trying various and sundry forms of quilting, it just seemed like a natural transition to get into long arming. I had the freehand machine for the first 5 years, and worked pretty hard at it, took lots of classes, practiced pretty hard, did a few quilts for others, but in all honesty, Bobby, I never felt I got really good at it.
Okay. So, but before you did that, all those years that you were doing non long arm quilting, um, so how did you get into that in the first place? Was it just family, or is it just something that you?
Wanted to make a baby quilt.
Okay, so that
And
was actually the thing that started you in it in the first place. Okay,
my mother was a sewer, sewed her own clothes right into her 80s. So I grew up sewing, but no one in the family was a quilter. And I wanted to make a baby quilt, and I just thought it looked like an interesting hobby. I thought as a new mother, I'd have lots of time on my hands, and that was obviously a very naive thought.
But obviously you liked it enough to stay with it for quite
I did, I'm from a family
some
that
time, huh?
had a lot of
It apparently
hobbies.
became something you enjoyed doing.
Yeah, we've always had hobbies in the family, and I tried a lot of other hobbies, but quilting is the one that has just stuck with me for 43 years, and I quilt daily at this point in time.
Quilt daily, okay. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. Um, so you got the hand guided machine. Do you still have the same one today or?
Oh no. Um, in 2009, I switched to a Statler stitcher.
Okay,
I decided that my employment status had changed. I had a golden handshake opportunity somewhere along the line. And I said, I'm retired from real work. Why don't I take on a different kind of job? And it was pretty easy to justify the Statler stitcher from the business perspective. So I
okay,
did, but I'm still not on the same machine I had then.
okay,
One, two, three. I think I have owned four Statler stitchers.
okay. All right. When you first got the Statler, did that coincide with starting a business or had you already started
I'd
one?
already started the business to a certain degree. It coincided with taking the business seriously, and deciding I really wanted to earn some money at it and work hard at it. Um, we built a studio for me on the property that we owned, and I decided I was going to be a professional quilter.
Okay, okay. So at the time you started with the Statler, that coincided with you retiring from the other job?
I'd retired a little before then.
Okay, okay, okay. So that dovetailed pretty nicely though. Um, so um, fast forwarding, you got into the business there, and how long did you have a quilting business?
I ran it pretty close to full time from 2009 to 2016. Much of that time, I had two Statlers. I had one inside the house and one in the studio. Also had a little mini shop, taught quilting lessons to people, and just
Okay,
really was working pretty hard at it.
and um, and during that time, how about how many hours a week would you say you were working? About
About two, by the time I hit 2014, 15, 16, I was working at least 40 hours a week. I was I was doing pretty well. There were not a whole lot of other people with Statler stitchers at that point in time. And I, from the start, promised a 2 week turnaround, which brought me some good business.
okay. Were
When
you able to keep up with that
I
uh,
did, that's why
consistently?
I went back and forth between two machines.
So it was just you running the two machines all the time, huh?
Correct.
Wow.
So
So, how many do you know like how many quilts a year you were making back
no, I do not have any of that statistical information. Um,
then?
I
Okay.
probably produce a quilt a week right now
You say
without,
you probably do
yeah,
produce a quilt a week
produce a
now?
quilt a week, and that's with no business at all.
So yeah, so you there came a point where you retired from your business, and we're going to get to that also. But I want to talk a little bit about the practical aspects of your business that you were running, because you've got experience, and a lot of the people watching this, that's the value of this podcast to a lot of people, is just getting a unique person like yourself perspective on the things that how they ran their business. So um when you were running it, did were you doing strictly edge to edge when you had the two Statlers, or were you doing any custom or?
No, I was doing both custom and edge to edge. There was a quilt shop about 3 miles from my home, and I established a very good working relationship with the owner of the quilt shop. That was a good way to gain business. And I was at a phase, excuse me, a phase of life where I could focus on the business. It's not like I had this other job from 9 to 5. I could focus on the business, and I made
Mhm.
myself readily accessible to customers when they needed it.
So when you first started, did you know that there were enough customers, enough business? Did you feel confident in that part of it, or is that something
Good question. And I'm not sure that I did know that.
that you had to struggle with? I'm sorry, you cut off for just a second there.
Yeah.
When you first started, what was the customer that, did you know there were enough customers in the area, or is that
I
something?
had a hunch, but I didn't really know. Um, I had a core of friends that were quilters, and I
Okay.
think it was quite different than it is right now, to tell you the truth, Bobby, because I don't know where other people are, but in Connecticut, most of the quilt shops currently have a long arm within their walls, and many of them are selling long arms. So it's certainly a different marketplace right now than when I started.
Okay. So let's see. When you were, how did you charge by, the quilt? Do you charge by the hour or by the square inch?
I charge by the square inch. When I was running the two machines, that would have been complicated to figure out the hourly rate.
True.
I timed myself on a few quilts to help me establish my price. And then there's a going rate, so to speak, in most areas.
And can you tell us how much you were charging at
I
that
was
time?
charging 2.5 cents a square inch for edge to edge. And as you went up, added a border, added this, added that, it went up to 8, 9 cents a square inch for really complex stuff.
Okay, okay. Um, all right. So, and some of the people I talk to, I'll talk to people, some of them have every little jot and tittle of information about every quilt they've done. They can, that question, how many quilts have you done? They'll pull out a big ream of paper and say, well, I did, 291 or something, and on the other end of the extreme, there's so many people that are just like you that just do it, do the quilting, produce the quilts. So I can definitely understand that part. I think if I was running a quilting business myself, I would be your kind of person. I I wouldn't be able to tell how many I'd made. So
I had records available to me. You need such things when you're running a taxable business, but
mm.
at this stage of my life, I don't need any of those records anymore.
That's gone out. Yeah, I got you. I got you. So, all right. 2016, is that when you retired from this business?
I did. My business was doing very well. I was working really hard, and life threw me a couple of curveballs. I lost my mother and my husband within 6 weeks of each other, and took
Mm.
that as a sign that I needed to reassess my situation and what I wanted to do with my life. And financially, I didn't need to be working. So I chose to shut down my business and move to be near my one child and his family. So life does that to you sometimes.
Well, and I think everybody watching can definitely understand that. Um, and yeah, that's a huge curve, losing loved ones and but I did pick up on something you said a while ago, that you're still quilting 7 days a week. That
I
doesn't sound much like retiring to me there, Holly.
Well, I'm a firm believer that everyone who's retired needs a hobby. So I guess you could call this my hobby, but quilting is what keeps me sane, keeps me happy, keeps me with friends. And I was able to pick up and move 45, 50 minutes from where I was and establish new friends through quilting. And so, yes, I'm very passionate about quilting.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think anybody watching this can tell that that is a fact. Um, well, if I could ask you just a couple of questions, that I think people appreciate the fact that you're, just being open and honest about everybody's got their own story, and you lost two of the closest people in your life to you, and that triggered, you taking a different direction in life.
Mhm.
And but you did have the business for a number of years there. And uh if when you're starting the business out, um is there any advice that you could give someone who would ask what was some of the hardest parts of growing a business or running your business at that time?
Well, I think it's always hard to start any new business and grow a new business, particularly a service oriented business. Uh, One of the hardest parts I had was when I made a big mistake on a customer's quilt, and had to apologize up and down and fix mistakes and
Um,
eat the money that I would have received. That's hard. That's a hard lesson to learn, but it is part of running a business. Sometimes we make mistakes.
can you tell us anything about like uh, a particular thing like that?
You know, if you make a hole in somebody's quilt, from my perspective, I felt I needed to give them a significant reduction in the cost, as well as figure out what to do with that hole. And that might mean running up to the store and buying a beautiful applique butterfly that went to the quilt and sewing that on. But you always had to be honest with the customer too, that it was your fault. So,
Gotcha. And the reason I'm just asking you because the people watching, they're going to encounter the very same things, and
mhm.
it helps them to see that somebody like you has traveled that hard path before them and you survived it. So
Do. And you will run into customers that you cannot make happy no matter what you do. And that's not a reflection of you. It's a
really,
reflection.
are there people like that out there?
There are indeed.
So yeah, so how would you, if you're dealing with somebody that's really difficult to deal with, a customer that you're trying to make something for, you have any advice on that?
Well, I would do whatever I needed to satisfy them on that particular quilt, and then suggest to them that they need to find another long armor. But they'll still badmouth you anyway.
Sometimes you just can't get away from it, huh? Oh, well, Holly, I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. That you know, just the fact of being real with everybody, I know that brings encouragement to a lot of people, because they see that what you've done and you were able to be successful, and they can do it
It's a fun business. It's a people business.
too. Um, do you have any piece of advice like people that are beginning this or thinking about beginning a journey with a business with their quilting machine? Do you think that it is something that can still be done in this day and age? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, I think it's harder to do now than when I started mine, largely because of so many quilt shops having their own long arms. Can it be done? Definitely. I personally think you need to establish a niche. For me, the 2-week turnaround that I established when I started was hard to meet sometimes, but my customers knew that I could meet that demand for them. Um, uh, Edge to edge is the bread and butter of the business. Being honest with clients, you get a quilt coming in that you think should be custom quilted, but their budget only allows for edge to edge. You need to
Gotcha.
give them what they want, what they can afford. And you need to be flexible. And in all honesty, the prettiest of quilts are just fine with a beautiful edge to edge done by a Statler stitcher, of course.
Well, let's see, there was something else I was gonna say there. You ever have it when a thought just leaves your head there?
Oh, yes.
I do have one question. Karen is asking, do you have a website or any place
I
where the
did.
public?
I did while I was running the business. I had a website. My daughter-in-law is a high school art teacher and helped me create that with, I think it was Wix, WIX at the time. And it was a way to bring business. I do think social media is very different now than when I started my business, and you can gain a lot of business through that. But I got very little of my business through my website.
Did you have business cards or anything that you
Definitely,
pass out? Okay.
definitely had business cards. I had pens made with my name on it, and things like that. Giveaways for the best of customers, things like that.
Okay.
It's a people business.
Yes. Oh, no, now I remembered what I was gonna say. You mentioned a niche. And I've heard that from many different people, that the exact same thing that you said. Probably at least 50% of our people mention how valuable it is to have a niche that you can that you do, and I think it's a lot of times it's something that you like, just some little detail that they really enjoy doing. We've had people that give out photographs of a quilt or
Right.
Different things like that. Did you have a specific niche that you with yours?
I think my niche was the turnaround time.
Yes. That's quick, and that's not everybody can do that.
Yeah. It was very hard. It was a lot of work. But it was a commitment I made, and I found it fairly easy to live up to. But I also was at a phase of life where there weren't a lot of other demands on my time.
Gotcha. So now you're still doing quilting, like, I guess, for friends or
Well, for a handful of friends.
gotcha. I don't guess you still have a 2-week turnaround time, huh?
I do.
You do? Okay. Oh, Betty was asking that,
A
so
handful of friends are very special to me.
there you go. There you go. Okay. Well, Holly, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been very informative and inspiring to talk to you. And is just I don't know if you don't have anywhere nowadays where the public can get a hold of you, do you?
Good question. I guess they could reach, I have a Facebook account,
Okay,
so
they can probably find you
reach
on
out to
Facebook.
me via Messenger and I would respond.
Okay, so they can
No,
find
I
you.
don't have a business card or formal address, but I'm
Okay.
readily available.
Okay,
But
so
through
if
the,
somebody wants to reach you, they can contact you probably on Facebook.
yes, that would work.
And there's probably not a whole lot of Holly Potvins out there.
I don't think so.
I think that's the first time I've heard that last name, so. Anyway, Holly, thank you so much, and we're gonna go ahead and let you go now for this episode of Quilting Business Success. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.